Well, hello, and thank you for joining. Tell you what, Chelsea,
Hi,
why
John.
don't you
Thanks for having
tell
me.
it? You're welcome. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do?
Well, hello. I'm Chelsea. I'm originally from Australia, but I'm half Spanish. And I've always wanted to live in Spain, hence why I'm in Barcelona. I work in marketing and digital, and I've been in marketing for over 20 years, but the last 12 years is specifically working in digital channels. However, I perceive marketing as marketing, and just digital is digital, TV is TV. Social's another platform. It's just about using different platforms and how in which you engage with your client. But I've been in Spain for 6 years, 7 years, and the last 6 years working in Andalusia, and then recently in Barcelona. And I've got my own little consultancy where I work with Spanish brands on helping them to transform their brand digitally in international markets. So my focus is only on taking Spanish brands internationally. So it could be the majority of my clients are spirits and wines. Some reason I've just keep attracting that, which I don't mind because I love it. But I work with them from anything from, okay, why do you need digital? What are the platforms, like who's your target audience first and foremost, always working with them on really defining who their target audience is, which a lot of clients go everyone, and you know as well, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. So I really work with them on first defining who their target audience is in these markets that they need to improve their brand or drive sales or whatever it is, and then working with them on defining why do you need digital, how is it going to help your business, how can we measure success, how can it scale, who's going to manage it, how can we involve and have all of your team integrated into this digital strategy, and then help them to implement it.
And in the last couple of months, obviously, now we've had some disruption. What's it been like for you? Has it impacted your work? Well, it's obviously impacted your work, but in what way has it impacted your work?
It's impacted it in positive and negative. In negative, one of the clients I was working on was a wine fair that was supposed to happen this month in May, and so obviously that's not happening. So in terms of, you can't pivot with something like that. You could take the wine fair online, but it's a huge undertaking to then be working on how do you get the samples out to people and how do you take that wine to the world. And it's possible, but you need a serious investment in being able to do that. A lot of businesses here in Spain and possibly in Europe, but my clients, they haven't put a lot of emphasis on their websites or their social media. It's still 10 years behind in my mind. So 12 years ago, I was working as a content director on Australia's largest radio network, and back then I was pushing like this constantly to, I was brought on specifically to drive their digital strategy because they'd realized that revenues were being splintered and they could see the internet coming. It's still, YouTube had only just launched then, maybe it was 15 years ago, sorry, and YouTube had just launched, so they started to recognize that there was these other mediums that they were going to have to be competitive with, and how could they embrace that. So I came on to do their digital content strategy. But even though they employed me, I still had to fight with all of the radio guys to include my team, include our strategy in everything they did. And it was always about a 360 strategy. So what happens on air happens off air. But they still looked at us like, Chelsea, can you fix my emails? They just thought we were the web nerds.
It's a culture change, isn't it? I mean, it's culture management, not just change management.
Massively. And I wasn't tech at all. I also had to learn tech. I was content and marketing. But the reason I went into radio was because I was working in music television, a subscription TV channel. And we had more subscribers on the newsletter to it was Channel V. I don't know if you remember Channel V, which was like the equivalent of MTV. And really culturally relevant and really projected. We really focused on regional Australia, so the country areas where kids were bored out of their brain. And so we gave them the entertainment that they were looking for, and we listened to them. So we had more people visiting the website, and we had more people registered on our newsletter than watching the show. And I remember seeing that in a meeting and going, oh my God, like we need to really get digital. So when the digital job came up, I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. Like, I want to go there. And this was, 15 years ago, which we were still behind. But what I'm doing here and what I've just seen happen here in the last 3 months, when you asked how the positive and negative, is a lot of businesses. So in the positive, I've seen businesses really embrace the work that I've done with them. So the Sherry Wine Council is one of my clients, and I built their digital strategy worldwide, and their Instagram account, for instance, has nearly 30,000 followers now.
Nice.
And they never looked at it. They never looked at my reports. They never commented on any of the content. They just were like, okay, cool. We're happy you're doing that, whatever. Since this has happened, I've been so there, I still consult for them, but I don't manage the account anymore. I've been so thrilled at watching what they've done with it. They have completely embraced their digital platforms, and they're on every night doing an Instagram live with the people of the region in Spanish, but they've managed to increase like by 5,000-6,000 followers in that times in the last 2 months. And it's just been my proudest moment to go, you get it, you finally get it. Like, you're using it, you see the power of this. And so that's been awesome. Whereas other businesses who haven't wanted to update their websites, who haven't invested in their database or even their Facebook or anything, they now haven't got anyone to talk to because they haven't got a community. Yeah. And that has been really negative for them. For me, I actually donated quite a bit of my time in the first month to a few businesses to help get them digital. And by doing some mastermind sessions with them, talking about, okay, let's look at how, I hate the word pivot because it's been overused, but looking at how they could adapt their skills into an online environment, even if it was only 30% of what they do. So I worked with a wellbeing and Pilates studio, which is all about touch. And, the Pilates, yeah, sure, you can do Pilates online, but their Pilates is really unique. They use the reformer beds. They're not doing those floor Pilates. They're like, it's all about reformer beds and touching. But we managed to create, and all of their wellbeing services are massage and Reiki and physiotherapy, which is touch. You can't put that online. But what we did manage to do was look at everything that they do, and I was like, the fastest way we can do this is to create a private Facebook group, and let's just set up a product on your website, which they had, which was good. They had WordPress and they'd updated their site, because this is the other issue I've seen. A lot of businesses haven't updated their website in years, so they want to try and update it now. They don't remember who built it. They don't know how to update it.
Don't know what the password is.
All the plugins are out of date. It hasn't got an SSL certificate, so they can't plug in Stripe or PayPal. So they've gone and built new websites which aren't connected to this site that's got all the SEO and where people are going. It's like, okay, that audience is so fragmented. You've got to be consistent and smart with your actual audience. So with the wellbeing guys, I was like, let's just do a Facebook group. You send a broadcast list, because their database, MailChimp's good, but sometimes it goes into spam. And I was like, showed them how to do a broadcast list on WhatsApp. Just send it to every single one of your clients, give them the link, invite them to join you on a month-long program of a wellbeing and Pilates Facebook group. So they've done it now for 2 months. They've been able to survive, which is great. They unfortunately are going to have to close down their studio because their landlords aren't being great, and they're the sort of business that aren't going to open till the very, very end, because they only had, it's touch. And it's not pleasant doing exercise with a face mask on. You're just breathing in carbon dioxide. So I think, I've been crazy busy because I've been doing, all my clients all of a sudden also want to do online education, which is another piece. And I don't want to sound like a know-all, but it was another piece I always had in my strategy with them of, you have all these great, seminars that you do, because the Spaniards also, they love this. We love face-to-face. So doing an online course is not part of their culture. And it's all about, you got to come to the region. You've got to go to the winery. You've got to taste, be right here with us. And they're costly, but, those sort of events. But they are extremely powerful in educating and turning people into ambassadors for your product. But you can also do the offline and online. So it's, for me, it's all about the 360. So I've been working with a lot of them to go, how can we create online education that we don't need to build something custom at the moment. Let's just at least engage with the people that were going to come to the region or to your area to do these courses, and let's keep them engaged and do online. Actually, let's think of gamification. Let's just do the basic level entry online. Then let's look at how we can move up, and next year they can come to the region, which is like your top tier. So it's very much about just stopping and pulling it apart again. What I've loved about it is there's so many incredible solutions that are coming out. There's a lot of innovation coming out from COVID.
Absolutely. And I think as well, when you have businesses like the ones you're working with, are kind of, they're not large corporates or anything like that as such. They're more kind of family run things, or they're kind of people who are, you're kind of, I don't know what the generations are specifically, but I suppose my analogy is you're kind of dealing, you have Gen X people in a Gen Y world kind of thing. So you're not savvy for, like, you know, activating your social media, getting out there, doing it live stuff, like you're saying, they're engaging with your clients and your customers and so on. And especially with things like that, you can do exactly that. And I mean, the thing I've seen as well that I've noticed is just sharing your expertise on things, you know, with your clients, with your customer base and stuff like that, giving them little tips and stuff like this. Again, you know, I mean,
even working from home, that was the first, like, I'm not a great content creator. I'm from content, and I know good content, and I direct good content, and I create content strategies, but I myself find it really hard writing content. I think I'm quite averse to being a thought leader. I'm more of a thought starter. I like to put stuff out there and see how people react, or, you know, and feed off others rather than come out with, you know, thought leadership pieces. But I did, the first thing I wrote the day we went in lockdown was, you know, the top 10, I think it was 10 or top 5, because I love a top 5. That's from being in programming. Television. It's just so easy.
Top 5.
Yeah. Top 5 at 5, top 3 at 3, you know, the top, you know, top 5 tips. I might have been top 10 tips for working from home, because I've worked from home for the last 7 years, and
me too.
It's hard, but it's easy too if you put some boundaries in place. And a lot of people have never worked from home. So it was even not just things like, you know, not wearing your pajamas when you work, but just the tools. You know, a lot of people weren't aware of things like Slack and, you know, or using project management tools, so how they could better coordinate. Like they're very much used in the new world and tech companies and startups, but they're not in the bigger corporations. They're not familiar with all these different tools, and even just Google Docs and things.
And even I found people that have had this problem in the past that I've spoken with, they're like, oh, I just can't focus when I work from home, you know. But I think that's such a crazy thing to say, because there's so much background noise in an office that's even harder to focus, surely. Like, but when you have the silence of your house,
disruptions.
Someone like, oh, can I ask you this? Can I ask you that? You know, you know, you just don't have that from home. And if someone calls or whatever, you can pick it up and call them later, or just not take the call.
But I really miss, though, like, and that's where I, you know, loved I don't know what's going to happen to co-working. That's going to die for a while, I think. But when I moved up to Barcelona, one of the first things I did was get into, you know, co-working spaces. And because I was like, oh, it's just good to be around a vibe, like around where you're, you know, around other energy. But I work the best at home because I have my space, but also I'm set up to work at home, and a lot of people aren't. You know, a lot of people are having to have makeshift desks in their bedrooms, or I think the hardest part is parents. This is the most extreme, like that's where my respect goes to, you know, parents having to look after their kids and still be on demand to work like they do. I think that, you know, there's a lot of talk about, so my husband's company is a big mobile game, and they're saying that they're not going to open their offices until September. And people are already talking about, well, like I think you've probably seen Twitter have said they're not going to force people to work from home.
Facebook are
work in the office again.
Facebook are setting up as well to have employees work from home. I think this would be the death of the office over time, you know.
So do I. and that massive amounts of money that is spent on offices. I mean, I still really miss the one-on-one. I still really miss being in a team, and you need that as well. And
100%.
yeah, but I think the efficiency and cutting out, like I think I can't remember the stats, but in India, the average commute time is 4 hours in India, and they've seen their productivity levels go up by 200% or something, because people are working at home and being way more effective because they're not having to commute 4 hours a day. So that'll be interesting in terms of where that goes. And, you know, the co-working boom that was happening here in Barcelona and other major cities was a bit out of control as well. Like everyone was all of a sudden, you know, big, huge flash co-working offices, and it was the
Well,
new.
maybe they'll marry up together. So I mean, companies are going to look at it and go, right, well, social distancing, and we can only have 50% occupancy in the office. So why are we paying for this office? Co-working spaces are going to, well, we have all these spaces. So maybe these companies are going to go, right, well, we won't pay any rent in the space anymore, in the office anymore. We don't have to pay electricity, insurance, all of that. We'll just book this co-working for 2 days a week. We'll do all our meetings in there, and everybody works from home the rest of the time.
Which actually is probably a good model. That's where they should be pivoting.
They use
You
that
know,
word
and
again.
it's like yeah, I know. Well, I used to use pivot all the time.
I'm
but
going to put
now
that word
it's
on
just,
screen every time you say it.
pivot. It's like a swear word.
It is, yeah. I'll
They
beep
could
it out.
adapt. You know, they could adapt. They absolutely could adapt. That's a great model that they could be thinking about. Like, all right, let's look at, because we do still need human interaction, and we do still need meetings. And I think that's been a massive impact for the extroverts.
Well,
In
that's what this has shown, though, as well, hasn't it? It's shown exactly those two things. It's shown companies that people can work from home and still be effective. Plus, it's shown that people who are working from home that they need human interaction. That's one of the things that everyone's badly missed above whatever else you want to rank in the list of things that people have missed. So maybe there's some way for those two things to come together now moving forward, you know. And in terms of, you know, within your own space of digital marketing, what do you think? Firstly, the near future, between now and the end of the year, how do you see things? It's obviously very difficult to say, but what's your kind of guesstimation based on what you've seen and how things have been rolling for you?
Oh God, that's a really interesting. I haven't thought that far ahead. I'm just getting through the day to day myself. I think for my clients, budgets are going to be very tight because Spain has been so hit by this. But I think if anywhere they're going to invest, it will be in their digital, because they now see how it works. Now, the other aspect of e-commerce. So Spain hasn't been that big, like with Amazon or buying wines online or anything online. Nothing compared to the UK and France even. And this experience that we've just had to endure, we're still enduring, has meant that people have learnt to buy online. Now they're seeing how easy it is. Now they've got their, you know, they're used to it. Like they've been forced to learn it really quickly, that they will absolutely still buy in shops and go into a wine store and buy, or go into a clothing store and buy. They will absolutely do that. But they've now had this massive, you know, onboarding that they wouldn't have had before. And a lot of businesses are not ready for it and still are not. So I think a huge focus from now until the end of the year is going to be e-commerce and how they get themselves into gear for that. And what that means, whether they're just going to work on other platforms and take the, you know, have commissions, but they've got to get their content and their metadata and their whole processing system together.
And this is the daunting thing about it for everybody, because, you know, a lot of people will be just deer in the headlights for the last few weeks to just like, Christ, what's after happening? And no way of, because you know, I've said this on one of the other these sessions I did with somebody else, that it's hard to pivot. I used it when you don't know where you're pointing towards, because we don't know what the future is going to look like. So it's kind of like double. Like I wrote a blog post on LinkedIn there, probably the beginning of last month, I think it was, and I kind of, what I was saying in that, I still think is the case. You know, when you don't know where you're going, you're just going to have to double down on what you're good at and just go for that. Like
that's true.
Trying to learn new skills in a time when you don't know whether you're going to need them or use them. That's just wasting your time. Do what you're good at, and
it's really stressful. Yeah, and that's it. That's a great. I totally agree with that as well. There's a management methodology that I've done of the Gallum technique, which is it's all about just focus on your strengths instead of like going, well, my weaknesses, I need to get better at my weaknesses. Just focus on your strengths and get better and better and better at your strengths. And obviously, you can always improve and evolve, but even if you have a strength in writing, then how does that become a really, major strength that can then go to digital, or whatever it is, or guest writing or ghost writing or being whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, focus on your strengths. I do think though that every business has to be online and offline. Like it's just the future for you to be relevant, and whether you're selling or not, you may not be. Like one of my clients is, it's a brandy. And I don't do any of their e-commerce. We don't do e-commerce because they leave that to their distributors. So our role is purely brand awareness and giving the distributors something to talk about, like helping them do their job. So there's other pieces to it as well. But I've always been and this is from my career path in Australia. We're a small country. You can't take no for an answer. If someone says, if you're when I worked in music, if radio wouldn't play the song, I couldn't take no for an answer because that meant the song was over. That record was never going to get played. Robbie Williams, Angels, I'll never forget this. 2 years I worked that single in trying to get it in Australia broke. And it was massive.
Is this your fault that I have to hear that song all the time for years? Damn
in
it,
Australia,
Chelsea.
yes, it would have after. It took 2 years of trying to get it off the ground, but you had to keep finding other ways, like, getting it on video hits, like a video, or, getting the club mix and getting it to the clubs, then giving it away as promotion items in, wedding kits. And you just got to be creative and inventive all the time. And I think that's really key of not taking no for an answer. Just always looking at, well, there's got to be something else, whether it's huge or not. It also just keeps you stimulated and that you've got a purpose.
Yeah.
I think too. I mean, that's one of the worst things that I've seen is a lot of my friends have lost their jobs because they work in tourism and they work in food tours. So they're just sitting there. And so this is part of my stimulation for coming up with Amiga del Dia, which we're going to launch next week. But the ideation from that came out of the restaurants being gone, like restaurants all of a sudden having nothing. And if they don't have a marketing platform and if they don't have a huge Instagram account, how can they tell people what they're doing? That now that they can do takeaway or that they can do delivery, because 30% is taken by, the food delivery companies, which is a big commission for a small locally owned restaurant. And the other, to your point, you was talking about we need the human connection and socialization is friendship. Like I really miss my mates. I really miss my friends, and we're doing this all the time, but I really miss the hug and to touch them. So, but we've come up, Amiga del Dia is a initiative that we're launching next week that we're doing completely out of passion. We're investing everyone I've brought into the project, and I'm going to bring you into next, is doing it completely gratis, free. And the idea is that it's a marketing platform to help restaurants and bars, locally owned restaurants and bars, reconnect with their communities through global initiatives. Because when you do it globally, and we haven't got budgets because it's all our own blood, sweat and tears, you can create a lot more noise and you can hit the consumer a lot faster. So the first movement's called Let's Lunch, and it's based on the Menu del Dia concept, the fixed price lunch menu, where restaurants all over the world are going to offer a fixed price lunch menu between the 20th of July and the 30th of July. And the idea is that friends, you get back together with your friends, your amigo del dia, friend of the day. So let's lunch. Let's get out and lunch every day or during this time.
In groups
Let's
of 10
find
or less.
Restaurants. Yeah, you can do in groups of 10 or less in Spain, but in other countries, maybe more.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, though, you could have a group of 10 And then in 2 meters here, you have another table of 10 more of your friends, and you can also be shouting and
You
screaming
could.
at each other like you would anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
So
like that
the
idea.
idea is that they're all these restaurants can all register on the site for free and say what their menu del dia or what's included, like whether it's a main, entree, dessert, or just an entree and main and a drink. And then people can search by city and by day and by
Awesome.
type of food, and they can see if it's takeaway, delivery, or eat in, and they go direct to the restaurant. So the idea is that
Awesome.
we just do the platform, the portal bringing them in, and we send them direct to the restaurant. And then that restaurant can continue communicating with those customers during that time. They can tell
Nice.
them what they're doing. They can tell them what else they're working on. They can get them to sign up to their database. Like it's up to them then to go, this is us, we want to make noise and drive people to them, and then they take it on. So that's an idea that's come out of
Nice.
COVID and wanting to give back, but seeing a big hole in these guys can't have no marketing dollars.
No,
How
and this is one of the things as well, that have been spoken about before, that I think companies, most people now will be cautious, very, very cautious coming up, and they'll be worried about spending money and so on like this. But as you pointed out earlier, I agree with you that let's just say that, let's imagine as we touched on before we started recording, that when we were chatting earlier, that this is wave number 1 of this problem now, and we're coming out of the back of it, and this is really good news, and we can kind of get back to some normalcy all over the place. But let's say we have wave 2 next year, so we have to do a bit more lockdown for probably not as long, a couple of weeks, maybe a nice dog.
he's my best friend. He's been my massive savior in this.
They're the best.
Monty.
But Monty. But I think if this is used as an opportunity for anyone who can do it to now start to pivot into moving your abilities, services, whatever you have, into an online space, so that there's little as possible. So thinking about the worst case scenario, if this happens again, how can I do business with as little disruption as possible? And I think this could be a good slap in the face for many people now. And as you pointed out earlier, just to circle back to that, I think it's easy for me to say it because I work in that area, and for you as well. But I do believe that the wise money would be spent on your marketing now, and your digital platforms, and getting as much out there to as many people as you can, and be connected, so that when they're locked up at home again, if it happens, you're there, and you're on their mind, and they can buy from you.
But even if we don't get locked up again, it's expanding and evolving your business to the future.
Exactly, even better then.
Yeah, because we know now that it's what the capabilities are.
Yeah,
Whereas
think about, like you could have a restaurant, for example. They're going to have a night. They're going to have a night on Friday night where we're going to have, this is a set menu that we're going to do. Everybody comes, like your menú del día type thing, amigo del día. And then after they've done it, the restaurant takes the initiative and says, all right, we're going to do a live thing tomorrow night or Tuesday night, and we're going to do 3 hours. I'm going to show you how we made this meal, and you can cook along at home. These are the ingredients, go buy them.
Yeah. Awesome. Or here's the pack. So yesterday I got, I ordered from a restaurant here in Barcelona, and it was amazing, Hawker 45. And it all came pre-made in bags with the instructions. And all we had to do was reheat it and, fry the curry puffs or put them in the oven.
Just had a little thing going, microwave 4 minutes. It's like, so awesome.
Absolutely, you can do that as well, and it was so good. It was incredible food, and we actually ate. It was my birthday yesterday. That's why we got it.
Happy birthday!
And thank you. I felt I was like, okay, I'm locked inside. We need to do something different and special.
I had my birthday last month during the same thing, and quite honestly, I think it was the best birthday I've had in a few years. It must have been just having Stockholm syndrome or something like that. But I was chatting with loads of people. I made some nice food.
I think way more people called me than normal yesterday. I think it's because everyone's more concerned, or they're that you're stuck, or they're also stuck. That I was basically on the phone all day to Australia, and it was really lovely. It made me feel really loved up and connected, and
well, I mean, if you're not meant to feel that way on your birthday, then you're never meant to feel that way.
Yeah. True. And the Spanish tradition is that you have to pay for everyone when you go out. So I didn't mind that, you know, don't
I
have
was locked up
to,
as well, so good news for me.
yeah.
And so, all right, towards the end of this, then I suppose to wrap it up, not really, but like to touch on this last part, past this year, the future. Then, as you've touched on a few times now, with a few little areas that you've mentioned, I think that fundamentally some things are going to be different from now on, and I've said this a few times in a few different places that I think in the future, the world will be viewed as pre-2020 and post-2020 in many, many areas and sectors and everything. What do you think would be some of the fundamental changes that we might see moving forward now into the years to come?
I mean, now you're making me think again to the future. I really do think digital is going to become not an afterthought. It'll just be part of, you know,
Priority number one.
yeah. And instead of the old way of, you know, trying to get them to, my recommendation always is with my clients, you need to be spending minimum 30% of your total budget on digital. I think it's going to be the opposite. 70% should be on digital and 30% on your traditional marketing. Maybe that's a bit.
Well, I mean, think about it this
That's
way, you know,
big.
if you're doing all your digital work and the world is normal, you're generating people to come to your business and do business
Yeah.
plus people online. And then if the world's not normal, you can do all your business online.
Well, the other aspect is like the restaurants, is that culturally, I think I think culturally we're going to have to get used to pre-booking.
Yeah.
At least for the next year or two. We can't just walk in, because that also is not fair on the restaurants, I don't think. I think they're going to need to be generating and picking up a lot of revenue from what they've lost this year. And they're going to hurt for more than a few months, because they're still having to pay their mortgages. They've not had tourism, especially in Europe, and they're going to get to this time next year and be in a lot of pain still.
Big time.
So I think culturally we're going to have to become people. This is why digital again is so important. We're going to have to become people that pre-book. We're going to become more like the Nordic countries, where you don't do anything improvised, which is a shame, but it's okay. It's the way it is. That all these restaurants too are going to need to have digital menus. So again, the digital aspect of, you know, you can't have these paper throwaway. I think that's going to be a massive impact too. I think we're going to be more, I hope we are more environmentally aware by waste, because except for the plastic gloves going on and masks, who knows how much shit that's causing. What else? They're the main ones. I don't know how the gyms are going. I can't see us going to the gym and sweating, doing spin classes anymore for a while. I don't know how what's going to happen there. One of the things I'm surprised gyms haven't done is hire out their equipment, you know, like give their members the opportunity to go, you want to hire a spin bike? Like, let's take this, you know, keep the revenue going in their gyms and take their spin bike, or hire the weights. Or, I don't know, I can't see the gyms opening for a while, because big gyms, they can't open their doors, pay all their staff, and still only have a few people in there at a time.
This is it. And this is where my mind's kind of going to, you know, all of these traditional businesses like offices and gyms and cinemas and bars and restaurants and you name them, supermarkets, shopping centers, you know, clothing centers,
malls.
You know, all of these places for some time to come are going to have the social distancing until such a time as everyone just forgets and just piles into the shops anyway. I was talking with someone last week doing one of these, Yulia is her name, and she does a lot of trend research and stuff like this. And she was telling me about a concept, I'd never heard of it, maybe you have, called phygital. So basically, Zara, for example, you will go online, and let's just say you want to buy your clothes online, you always buy them online anyway, but you're never sure the sizes. Sometimes they're too big, too small, etc. You go to the store, you can try on the exact thing, right, that's perfect, scan the barcode, and then they just deliver that thing to your house. So you only use the shop to try the clothing on. Even trying on clothing, I mean, who's going to do that for a while to come? This is the thing.
I know, that's one thing I've been thinking about. Like, yeah, they've got signs up already saying make a reserver and one person at a time. But you're trying on clothes. Yeah. So my sister-in-law is a nurse, and she has said that if you really, you know, want to manage this properly, you should, every time you go outside, you should change your clothes when you come in. And she said, or just use a robe. And she said, you should never use your shoes inside, and your clothes need to be. And we were like, oh my God, like because she was, she's in it, and that's what
Mm.
she was like. This is the so you think, well, I'm not going to go to a clothing shop and try on something that someone else has tried on, someone else has put their hands on too and pulled out. There's so much touch, I think.
Everywhere that you go, and like we mentioned earlier, there's going to be a lot of just a lot of weirdness, like a lot of people, and this is obviously going back to professionally, but obviously, all the people that you or I would deal with on a professional are people too. And, some people are going to be a lot stranger about going out and doing these things than other people are. And that's another reason why I think everything will just get pushed more online. Even if people didn't want to in the past, now they're going to go, well,
Yeah.
I think it makes the most sense because there's no touch.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful and I'm positive that it will return to some sense of normality in the future. But I don't know how far away that is, because another risk that I've been hearing about is, even if this vaccine comes through as fast as they hope, within a year, the risks with that is that to create a vaccine of this level, you need to test it. And
Yeah, of course.
so who they're going to test it on first, like, it's a pretty scary vaccine. And so there's a lot of, medical sort of reports too about that being a high risk, that you don't rush through vaccines of this level this fast.
No, from what I've seen, my sister-in-law is a scientist, and I was asking her about this, and 5-6 years is fast for a vaccine, but this one they're saying 12 to 18 months maybe they can. But it's not just producing it and it does the results. Then there's a whole supply chain behind that. Then it has to be tested, it has to be approved, you have to manufacture it, you have to distribute it. It takes time. I think once we get a vaccine,
I hope with fashion,
this should be better.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I hope with fashion, when you touched on Zara, I hope that it goes back to, I think a lot of things, so I think there's going to be a lot of innovation with tradition or history. And I think things like fashion need to go back to what they were in the 60s, 4 seasons, not weekly seasons, which is how the major guys churn out. And that's why there's it's not sustainable fashion, and there's cheap labor, and it's not sustainable. So I think perhaps that would be good. There's old tradition that things might change, but I don't know. I don't know how quickly we're already seeing how quickly people are already going back to normal, like whatever what normal is. And you think,
and you have as well with a situation like this, you're going to have an element of fatigue as well. People are just sick of it, and they just want normalcy back, whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. I mean, when I go out in the morning for exercise, or if I'm out in the evening for a stroll or whatever, it's busy. Like I was up in Montjuic last Saturday just for a walk around, and it was sections there where you just couldn't socially distance from people. It was so busy with people. But what do you people have been locked up for weeks. They're just not used to that, and they're worried, and they're seeing this thing all over the world. It isn't a local situation in Barcelona that, okay, well, at least I can fly back home, or I can go for a holiday somewhere else and forget about it. It's everywhere, So I think the fatigue level that people have, they're just going to want to go back to life as fast as possible. And what can you say, really? I mean, I think we all have to have some level of responsibility with it, and I think, largely speaking, most people are. I think, I mean, when I walk down the street, we avoid each other, and I don't see anything that makes me. The one thing that I have noticed, actually, when I've been out in the morning and the evening, is I've seen an inordinate amount of elderly people out at those times.
Same, but they're not supposed to be out.
No, that's the time they're not supposed to be out. That's why we're out at that time. It's dangerous for them, but I guess they have their timetables and schedules, and that's when they go for their walk. And I don't know, but yeah, one of the things as well that just before we wrap up, then, yeah, I think like based on what we've been saying there, all of these things combined will make a different timeline for us in the future, where I think the digital element is going to be so important. Because 9 out of 10 jobs can be done that way.
Yeah.
But we'll see. What about any wrap up words? Any thoughts?
Resilience. No. I don't know. I think any wrap up thoughts. I think there was a great post by Maeve, who you interviewed a few weeks ago, and it's just really stuck with me, and I shared it, and a lot of my friends really loved it as well, which was the MVR, the minimum viable routine. I think that instead of the minimum viable product, MVP, and it gave me like a get out of jail card. I think this is not normal what we've been experiencing.
No.
And I think sometimes I've actually found it a bit overwhelming listening to interviews like this or all thought starters and just thinking, oh my God, I'm a loser. I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I was
me too.
just, feeling like overwhelmed and I should be doing more and, and stressing. And then just also that article gave me like a get out of jail card that someone else was feeling the same, to go, I just need to do the minimum viable routine today to get through, because this shit is heavy. And even though I've got work and I feel extremely blessed, my empathy levels are through the roof. And that's why I'm doing the Amiga del Dia, because so many of my people are in trouble. And it's given a lot of people a purpose, because I'm sort of pulling in ambassadors from all over the place who are food bloggers or food tour operators, and going, this is yours to take out, to get the restaurants involved. And it's just having a sense of, I've got something to get up in the morning for. I think it's really important not to compare yourself with other people, and to give yourself time out.
Yeah, big time.
But it's really hard.
And as well, you just have to cut ourselves a bit of slack, Yeah, I think it's the same article you're referring to where she was talking about getting off the productivity train. Is that the same one? Yeah, me too. I read that and I thought, thank you. I appreciate that. But, as well, you might get a day where you feel productive and another day where you don't. You might get an hour up and down, up and down, up and down throughout the day, but exactly that. Just do what you can do and get off your own back and give yourself some slack, because it's not normal. It isn't easy. But as everybody else keeps saying, we'll get through it, and we will. But I think it's important. The sense of community is important. And as you say, helping your friends, your family, people who you can give some assistance to, and just giving yourself a break.
Hey, that's actually been one of my highlights of the most positive thing that's happened in COVID is I've met some amazing people. And I can't wait to meet them. I've I can't wait to get out and meet them in person. And I've developed some really nice relationships with some smart entrepreneurial women, mainly all chicks, but it's been really, I haven't met them here. They're all here in Barcelona too.
Brilliant.
And they're freelancers or entrepreneurs, and it's just been like, wow, I would never have met you if this hadn't happened. So
there's a lot of networking going on right now, which is a really good thing, and I think that's just born out of pure necessity, because people are just the best way to go, the best way to find out what's happening is just to talk to people and see what's happening, ask them where they are, what's going on, how has it been for you, and then you kind of get a bit of a bell yourself and you're like, I didn't even think of that. So I mean, it's all good. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
And you got a pooch as well called what's your dog's name again?
Monty.
Monty, of course it is.
Monty. But look, there's Monty. He's a cocker. He's very nervous.
He's quite big. He's a big dog, is he? It's like a medium-sized dog.
No, he's a medium-sized. Yeah. So medium cocker spaniel.
A medium-sized spaniel, Mr. Spaniel. All right, well, I guess we can leave it there. Thank you very much. Much appreciated, Chelsea. And, I hope you're doing good. If I can help you with that Amiga del Dia, just let me know. I'd
totally
get involved.
I'm going to launch it. I'm working on it all weekend so that it's ready to launch on Monday. And
Brilliant.
Then it'll be like, boom, I need to get it out to people. I need ambassadors. I need more people to communicate and fire it up, but it'll be in Spanish and English to start. And I've had a couple of Italian girls contact me and go, we love this, we want to help, because they obviously want to help their fellow Italians, so they've said, we'll do whatever, we'll translate. And I was like, all right, let me get it live, let me get the comms right, and then absolutely, if this is something that you want to help me, help us drive, then bring it on.
As they would say in Australia, fully sick, eh?
Fully sick.
Fully
happy
sick,
days.
Happy days. All right. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, John. Ciao.